inspiring you to set the marketplace ablaze in partnership with an awesome and limitless God. This is the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast, and this isn't business as usual. Here's your host and Chief Fire Igniter, Shay Bynes.
Welcome back to the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. This is your host, Shay Bynes, and our goal here is to inspire you to operate your business completely yielded and in partnership with our awesome and limitless God. Today's guest is serial entrepreneur and the founder of Daily Godpreneur, Alex Miranda. Alex has such a rich testimony that speaks to the transforming power of immersing yourself in the Bible and allowing the Holy Spirit to bring those scriptures to life and make them relevant and tangible in your life and in your business. We also talk about how God shifted how he engages with clients in a really practical way, but a way that actually points them back to the one who created them, whether they believe in Jesus or not. Now, we're going to do something a little bit different with this episode, and I've added a bonus conversation at the end of my chat with Alex. And it's with Drew Hiss, who's the co-author of a book called Sharpen, a guidebook for business ownership and adventures in leadership. So I encourage you to stick around and listen in to that as well. But first, let's get started with my conversation with Alex Miranda. Listen in and enjoy. Alex Miranda, how are you, sir?
I'm awesome. Thank you so much for asking.
Are you laughing because of how I pronounced your last name?
No, I'm honored. I am. I'm grateful that someone recognizes that, and thank you so much. People call me Miranda. They say Miranda writes. However it is that you can remember, it's yours.
I love it. I love it. You are my fellow South Floridian brother. So you're down in Miami. Well, I'm in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, that's cool. We're neighbors.
You born and raised down there?
I am not. I'm a military kid, so we moved around a bunch. Born in Germany and been to a whole lot of places.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then how long have you been in Florida now?
96. I got here in 96. Then I left for 4 years to college up in New York. And then I came back. Been here ever since.
Okay. Very good. Well, I'm looking forward to digging into your adventures with God in business. And so why don't we just get started, Alex, by you sharing how you got your original start with business. I know you've got a branding agency and some other goodness going on.
Yeah. I mean, I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. Ever since a kid, I would, found some puppies when I was with my grandma in Puerto Rico and, threw up a little sign on the street, say puppy, $5. And I was just a kid, man. But my grandma she would sell flowers in the little plaza over there. So probably got that from her. But when I went to, high school, I was involved in Future Business Leaders of America, then get to college and did some entrepreneurial stuff over there. So I've had this entrepreneur spirit in me for a while. And I graduated college and took a year to work in a sales position, which is kind of entrepreneurial, but I was still under the man in the corporate world.
Right.
But after a year, I said, you know what? It's time. And I was really getting into this whole web thing, social media marketing thing. This was back in 03, 04. Facebook had just surfaced as a means. MySpace was the thing. So yeah, that's when I started all that.
And so was your first business going right into doing the branding agency? Branding and marketing?
Yeah. Yeah. And this was before Christ. So when
BC story.
Very much into the club world. I was a nightclub promoter. I was a DJ in college. In Miami, if you don't have parents who are Christian and shelter you from the nightclub world, you pretty much go right into that because that's where that's the culture. That's everything is Miami. It's party. And so I followed suit and got into promoting and DJing and all that good stuff. And when I got back, that continued after college. And I noticed that these clubs that I was promoting, they weren't doing good in their marketing and their websites and their graphic design. So I got with a couple friends and we said, we could be promoting for these clubs, or we can go to the next level on the business side of the nightlife. And that's what I did. I opened up an agency that catered, that our niche was nightclubs. And we had nightclubs all across the world. I was speaking at the Nightclub and Bar Convention. I wrote, my first book was Guide to the Perfect Flyer Design. So deep into nightlife marketing at that time, before Christ. So that's kind of how this whole marketing thing started for me.
Okay, so now you have to share with me. That was the before Christ story. Tell me the I met Christ story.
Well, this is it's I call it how to leave the nightlife, and because you're in this world of the nightlife, and it's got you wrapped around its fingers, from not just the money, but the women, the drugs, the alcohol, it all, and then I created my whole identity around this. So when my friends from Cornell would come into town, or their friends, it's like, you got to call Alex. And I loved this attention. I loved being the center of the party. But at one point, someone invited me to church. Actually, I blogged about it this morning. It was really my mom. She gave me a book called The Secret. And again, this is before Christ. So I'm reading this book called The Secret. And I was like, whoa, there's this power outside that I can tap into. And that was revolutionary to me. Because up until then, I thought, this is what you got, what you learn in business and then in experience. And that's the power and the motivation that you move forward with. But this is the first time I understood this outside concept. Then a friend of mine told me about, I was trying to share The Secret with him. Little did I know he was a born again Christian. And he's like, Alex, that's cool and all, but do you know where the source of that power is? Do you know, where credit is due for that? And I said, no. He's like, that's God. And God wants to, God wants to bring you things and bless you with things and lavish us, but there's so much more. And if that excited you, there's a whole nother world of things that you can tap into. And so that was exciting to me. And I attended a Christian church, and it wasn't, I grew up Catholic, so it was very ritualistic church to me. But this was different. This was like Cornell, like sitting in class, because they give you a pen and you're taking notes, and I can relate to the guy in the front. He's got kids and a family, and it was just awesome. This new way of learning and growing spiritually. And what happens is that when you start bringing light into darkness, all of a sudden God started shining things on areas that he wanted to change my heart in. And one of the big areas was that I couldn't serve two masters. So I couldn't be this nightlife guy and also be growing in my relationship with God. I pulled it off for a couple of years, but the conviction eventually sets in so much that I decided one day that was it. I have to stop all of this nightlife stuff. It was getting to that critical point. I was really frustrated with certain clients, and I couldn't settle down and get a steady girlfriend, and couldn't find a wife. So I had to cut it cold turkey. And one day I told all my employees, hey, listen, guys, I'm going to help you guys find jobs, but I'm going through a complete revolution in my mind, and my business has to follow that direction. Wow. So I let everybody go and started over. It was probably the worst, deepest, darkest moment of my life, because I didn't have an identity anymore. My whole identity was wrapped in this nightlife, and I had to start over with a completely new identity. And I knew it was going to cancel some people out, and definitely going to be a hit on my pocketbook. but I trusted God.
Yeah.
That's where the story of everything begins.
Wow. So here you have to make a pretty dramatic shift in your business, which you had pretty much wrapped your identity around. And now it's like, okay, now I want to learn more about who God is, who I am in him. And then how does my business life kind of fit into all of this? So how did you walk that out in the beginning stages? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, great question. So I knew that I could work on my relationship with God and have him impact different areas of my life, my relationships, my health, various areas. But the one area I was really worried about was in the business, because as an entrepreneur, this is where your money comes from. This is where and as a man, this is where your sense of manlyhood comes from, to be able to provide and to prove to my parents that I can survive and I can make it out there. And when I cut my finances off, it was, I had to take some extreme measures. So what tends to happen, and what happened to me, was that I leaned on to God more. So I understood that I was poor in spirit, and that I needed this full dependence on God, because that was the only way that this was going to happen. If I made the decision to cut the nightlife, then God would be the one to provide. So I needed to get into the Bible on a daily basis. And at this moment in time, I'm suffering greatly. So I'm thirsty for the word in the morning. And the thirst, though, wasn't to help me find a girl or to get over a tragedy in my life of some kind of death. For me, the tragedy was my business, was my identity as an entrepreneur. Was how was I going to provide and reestablish myself in the marketplace? And so I was searching the Bible for that in particular, right? Like when my brother passed away in 2008, I went into the Bible and searched for that, right? Because that was the moment I was in. And so the Bible came out at me and showed me the areas where he could help me through that tragedy. But in this case, I was seeking God's help in my business. And what happened was different verses were starting to pop out at me. And I couldn't help but to want to journal about it, to share it with other entrepreneurs, kind of get some feedback, or just, sharing a thought like, hey, did you guys even know that this Bible verse is in here? And this is how it can apply to my business. And eventually, day by day started to go by, and I started to see it was there. It was all in there, and that the whole Bible could be seen as this business book. And my thirst for this and my thirst to find a new identity, mixed with the loss of identity, all created this cauldron of spiritual awakening as it related to my business. And I didn't want to keep it to myself. I knew journaling was a way to learn it more, but I also knew that if I could share that journal thought, I was going to be, enlisting others and getting others to opinionate on it and to back it up. And that was the beginning of Daily Godpreneur, my blog, where I'm about 600 blogs in now, because back in 2014, I decided I was going to blog consistently about everything that the Bible is telling me about business. Wow. And that's how I did it. I just went deep into the word. Like with any tragedy or anything going on in our life, when we decide to make the word the power of what's going to get us through, God does amazing things. And that's why I'm at where I'm at today with my blog and the various ventures I have with towards Christian entrepreneurs is because, I needed that for my own transformation.
Yes.
And now I just want to share that with everybody.
That's so good. I want to talk about that a little bit more, but before we get there, share what you're doing now. So we know what you were doing in business BC. What is it that you're doing in business right now?
Really what I did was I just dropped the nightlife. I was also doing strip clubs. We were also doing work for like porn websites, helping them with their graphic designs, things like that. So I knew that everything in that area had to go, right? That wasn't where God wanted me.
Right.
But instead, God was leading me to have a heart for entrepreneurs, especially ones that are just starting, but also the ones that were in business already, because sometimes you have a business, you've been an entrepreneur, but you restart, you rebrand, which is exactly what I went through myself. So I know that even existing entrepreneurs get to a place sometimes where their own identity gets rocked. They need to go in a new direction. God's calling them in a new way. So that's what we call rebranding. The business world calls that rebranding. But when you're starting a business, you're branding. You're trying to figure out what inside what your calling is, what's wrong in the world that you're trying to make right. And then you're expressing that into the world through your product and service. And I found that fascinating. I found it completely spirit filling when I was coming alongside of an entrepreneur to help them discover their calling, their business calling.
Right.
Specifically, like what business are you born to be in? And then help them bring that thing to life. So, basically I just dropped the nightlife and anything related to negativity that God wouldn't honor. And I went into helping the entrepreneur themselves discover what they were born to do and bring it to life.
So here you are. I'm going back to just the transformation that you went through, just digging into the Word of God and seeing what God had to reveal to you and speak to you about as a business person. I want to know what, as you were doing that, maybe some of the transformational stories, like maybe you normally would have done business a particular way, or there was a particular issue that you had in business that normally maybe you would have solved it some other way, but now it's like the word has become alive to you and it informed and instructed your next step, your problem solving, or your next step, or the next idea, or what have you. Talk to me about some of those moments that you had as you were digging in the word and God was speaking to you through it.
So my biggest aha was that if I could come alongside of these entrepreneurs and help them identify what God's purpose is for their business, then I can help them craft their story, and I could help them bring about the entrepreneur or the clients that God's called them to impact. And that's really the big revolution that happened was when I connected my purpose for my business to God's purpose here in the world.
Yeah, that's so good. So then when you have clients that come to you, I mean, I suspect that when clients come to you, they're coming from a lot of different angles. Some of them feel like I already have everything mostly figured out. I really just want you to create a logo and a website for me. Other people may say, I have a sense of what I want, but I'm not exactly sure. But it sounds like regardless of how the person comes in, you take them through the same process because you want all of them to be connected to the original designer of it all anyway, and have them connected with him, and then have conversations around the bigger picture of what they're doing, the bigger picture around whatever it is, their product, their service, and then start there and allow everything to flow from there, no matter who it is that comes to you.
No matter who it is. And that's the evangelistic side of that all of us have as entrepreneurs, as Godpreneurs, is that for some people, evangelism is going door to door and sharing the gospel. For business owners, evangelism happens when we can have an authentic conversation with Christians and non-Christians about how our solution to their problem is actually a solution that God is bringing about. And that if I can connect that thought in the person's mind, I've started a revolution in their mind. I've evangelized. I've let them know about the good news as it relates to their pocket. And for me, the message is very receptive. Again, Christian or not, if I tell someone, listen, to make the best possible logo or website, to come up with the best possible story that will magnetically attract business to you, for a realtor, that's more listings, for a doctor, it's more patients, for an e-commerce store, it's more sales. If you can help show that your product is making a bigger difference in the world as to how it spins, then you've evangelized to your clients. That is a message that is receptive. My clients embrace it. And I promise you this, for any business that is able to have that authentic conversation, you've just turned your business into ministry in the marketplace.
I want to go back because you mentioned Daily Godpreneur, which is the name of your blog, which you started when you were like, hey, I'm going to get in this word and I'm going to see what it has to say about business. I think when you and I spoke prior, when we first met, that you mentioned that one of the things that was so helpful with you was the fact that reading the Bible just seemed to be kind of like a religious activity, like just something to do. But when you put it in the context of, wow, this can actually inform my life and my business, and you're able to kind of put a context around it, it helped you so much. So I want you to share some of the surprises as you have journaled this thing out, the Bible as it pertains to business, and shared it with whomever was paying attention in the world.
Mm-hmm. When I realized that there was power in there for my business, at first I selfishly went into the word to help my spirit grow and my business grow closer to God. And then I realized I needed to blog about that to share it with others. Once again, selfishly, because blogging helps you understand it better when you're teaching others.
Right.
But then as more people started commenting on my blog posts, I had this desire to want to come alongside other entrepreneurs who hadn't yet caught the bug. What do I mean by the bug? The bug that I went through, which was this revolution of the mind that the Bible is actually a big business book of success. Like, take all the business conferences and all the business books and the landmark forums and Tony Robbins events and take them all, and every single one of those guys grabbed the concepts of the Bible and simply are teaching it to their target market. This is every single success coach, everybody, all the big dogs. They're all teaching things from the Bible. Whether they give credit to God or not is a whole nother story, and that's between them and God. But I realized that all I needed was this Bible, and that it was there every day for me. But that if I didn't attach this desire to want to show other entrepreneurs and to have it want to impact my life, if I didn't set that goal of transforming my complete identity and wanting to see what God's purpose was for my business, for my calling, how God wanted me to lead other employees, how God wanted me to speak to my prospects, how God wanted me to deal with my business partnership problems. If I didn't have this insatiable desire to want to see what the word has to say about all those areas of my business, I probably wouldn't have stuck to it. And so the whole concept of Daily Godpreneur is to try to let as many Christian entrepreneurs out there know that there is a way to get into the word that is exciting, that is profitable, not just spiritually profitable, but also monetarily profitable, and that you can use that as a driving force to strengthen your relationship with God. And that's the entire premise. I'm not trying to be the only source of someone's spiritual growth. I'm just trying to say, look what I learned in the Bible, and you can do it too. Just if you saw the Bible from a business perspective, you'll see how God wants to partner with entrepreneurs to help them grow their businesses, because in growing their businesses, they're actually doing God's will here on earth even more.
That's good. That's good. I love it. Okay, before I let you go, is there anything just burning on your heart that you really want to share?
Listen, I have my calling is to help entrepreneurs discover what they're born to do and bring it to life. But even that can't happen without someone having a deeper relationship with God. And so if there's people out there that are, I'm assuming a lot of the people that are listening to your podcast are deep-rooted, but sometimes maybe some people have sort of strayed away from the daily habit of being in the Word. And if that's you that have strayed away from that, I've been there. I know that feeling. There's this guilt that starts to come over, and that guilt can grow even more as the enemy takes a hold of that particular part. But there is a way out of that, and it's by simply coming to the Word, back into that habit every single morning. And so I make it extremely easy for you to get that going. I don't want to be your only source, but I want to be a catalyst in your life, in your as a Christian, so that you can come to the Word daily, and in that daily bread that you're getting, I know all the areas of life are going to be impacted, but the one I specifically am a catalyst for is the one as it relates to your pocket, to the money, to your and your identity as an individual here in this world. And so if you go to dailygodpreneur.com/subscribe, or you just go to dailygodpreneur.com, you'll see it right there on the homepage. I have a free daily devotional for Christian entrepreneurs, and it'll come to you every night at 10 o'clock at night, so that you can either read it at night, but it's probably better that you don't, that you read it, it's saved in your inbox, so that whether you wake up at 3:30, 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, you're up and it's in there in your inbox, ready for you to consume. It's quick. It's just a thought for the day. And hopefully, no, not hopefully, I know the messages are going to come right on time. They're going to be fruitful for whatever you're currently going on in your business. But more importantly, it's going to help you develop your relationship with God on a deeper level, because you're going to come to Him daily.
I love it. Alex, it's so good. Thank you for sharing your story with us. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Shay, for allowing me to express it to the world.
DailyGodpreneur.com. Thanks, Alex. I really enjoyed my chat with Alex, and I love how he brought others along for the ride with him to share the nuggets of wisdom that he was gleaning from the Bible during his own study. He didn't do it with the idea of, hey, this is going to be a business, or I'm making a business out of this. He really just did it to help other people while he was helping himself. But I'm also looking forward to seeing how it all develops as he continues to partner with God through the work that he's doing. Now let's shift gears and get to the bonus conversation with Drew Hiss. Now, Drew is a business advisor to Christian entrepreneurs. And as I mentioned on the front end of this episode, he's the co-author of a book called Sharpen, a guidebook for business ownership and adventures in leadership. I added this chat with Drew because the book Sharpen helps you to understand the timeless principles found in the book of Proverbs for practical application in business. So I guess you could say the entire theme for today is the power of the scriptures. So let's get started with this bonus chat with Drew Hiss. I want to talk about this book that you wrote
Sure. Yeah.
with Dan Cooper, Sharpen.
The essence of this book we wanted to create was born out of the war room, if you will, of these advisory teams where you've got 10 to 12 owners and CEOs together. One of the steps in our process is Shay, if you had an issue and you were asking for feedback and experiences from the team, you would share that issue and challenge, and then we kind of call a timeout during the middle of that and say, before we give Shay solutions and recommendations or experiences we've had, before we do that, let's kind of dial into what would put a smile on God's face. How is this going to align in a way that it's aligned with His biblical truth that He provided us through the Bible, right? What stories, parable, principles, scriptures specifically can we draw on that will help make sure that we're providing counsel to this individual that's lined up with what would please God. Well, guess what book of the Bible most commonly gets referred to when somebody's looking for maybe a truth or a little nugget? It's the book
Wisdom of Solomon in the book of Proverbs.
Yeah. Solomon, the book of Proverbs, right? It's written by one of the wealthiest, most influential leaders that was documented in the Bible. And yet King Solomon was probably a lot like you and me and Dan and others who lead and run companies. We have ADD. And, it's written like this journal of random thoughts and meandering ideas, and it ping pongs all over the place. And so we're like, we would see this take place during this little timeout segment we would have to ask guys to, throw out a nugget. And they would go, well, I know I read something great in Proverbs, but I can't find it because Proverbs is not written like a concordance. So we said, hey, there's something there. There's a pony there. So let's put this book together and create themes, these leadership topics, whether it's decision making or leadership or anger or integrity or whatever the theme might be, and let's pull these great truths out and put them in these buckets. So it's Sharpen is a book really written to help those who want to draw on the truths that King Solomon wrote about and be able to kind of thumb right to them.
Yeah.
Poke right at them. And so it's Proverbs Concordance meets Business Owner Manual.
Yeah, because you mix the stories. So you have the stories of yours and Dan's experiences as entrepreneurs mixed in with here's the truth of the word sharing, and then putting it all. I just love the way it's organized. And you can just go to the front of the book and table of contents and say, I want to see this topic. Right. I'm dealing with this situation. I'm going to go to this topic. I'm just going to see what's here. And so you have the illustration of your stories to go right along with the word. That's great. And the book came out just a few months ago, right? So in September 2019. I love that. So this book was essentially an answer, a solution to what you were running into and just trying to provide advice and counsel to others.
Right. Yeah, we just, it's such a rich text, and the truths have been around for 3,000 years, right? And so we're like, let's make them relevant, actionable, quickly accessible, and so that's the spirit of the book. And we, to your point, we pepper it with some stories that are real world stories, but then we also add to it tools that help make those truths actionable. So decision making tools and we talked about effective confrontation tools, things that really will help business owners and leaders become better and more effective.
Yeah, that's so good. And so as like a preview for folks, can you share one of your favorite tools that you walk people through in Sharpen?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to give you two as a bonus.
Sweet.
and they'll be quick because I don't want to, I want to tease a little bit, right?
That's right. You got to pick up the book and read it.
One of my favorite tools, and I would tell you it's been one of the most effective tools. I would, although I don't have statistical empirical data, I would say 85 to 90% of the challenges business owners have to do with leadership and people, right? So when you think about what are typical challenges with people, it's usually a performance or behavior issue, and what happens is owner or leader doesn't have a good way to confront the issue or course correct, and so they kick the can. It festers, and then 6 months later, you've got this just cancerous, toxic thing going on, and now you got a real problem. It may have affected other people, right? The rotten apple, and it taints the whole basket. So one of my favorite tools is a tool called Fetch, which is an acronym for frustration elimination through conversation that's healthy. And really conversation is confrontation. And it's an 8-step program. It was a tool that was initially developed and repackaged with John's permission, but by Dr. John Townsend. And it's the most effective and powerful tool I've seen used in the 8 years I've been working with other business owners and CEOs. It's a tool I wish I would have had. It would have saved me literally millions of dollars. And I've seen it have 8-digit impact on situations where an individual needed to have a tough conversation with somebody, but just didn't have the tool set to do it. And one specific case it's actually, I think, documented in the book, but an individual came in, he was talking about a guy, and he said, after I leave this meeting, I'm going to go fire this guy. His behavior is completely off the rails and is not producing. And so it's become futility. And I said, well, if you've had a meaningful confrontation to course correct, well, I have, but it's just not working. I said, well, I've got an idea for you. Try this. And I gave him the Fetch tool, walked him through the 8 steps, literally in just a matter of about 7 minutes, just a bit of light coaching on it. And he went back and had a Fetch conversation with this guy on his team, and the guy responded to it because it's a tool that's both truth and grace. It's tough on the challenge and the problem, but it's grace filled with finesse dealing with the individual.
Yes,
and so it's very I would say spiritually created process and heavy on truth and grace. So he used it, and the long story short is this guy stayed on the team, course corrected, ended up producing a $16 million piece of business, and then later, about 3 months later, another $7 million piece of business, and it's still part of their team. So the better part of the story is not the numbers; it's the life that was, I would say, spared in this situation. Didn't have to go home that night, tell his wife he got fired. Didn't have to continue to be productive part of the team. Family intact, marriage intact. Didn't have to sell. It averted all of the other fallout that would have occurred. I could share some other tools real quick, but that's probably that's by far my favorite, I think.
So you said you want to share 2. You want to share the second one?
Yeah, I'll share another one. Yeah, because I've recently used it in a decision I had, and it's a tool that has to do with 10-10-10. Susie Welch, I think, wrote about this in some writing she did. But we, talk about the 10-10-10, and when you have a decision you're making, it's really a decision making framework. And in the 10-10-10 is really putting that decision into the filter and saying, okay, is this decision going to matter the way I'm making it 10 days from now, 10 months from now, or 10 years from now? And if it may get kicked out on one of those time frames, right? It may go, well, yeah, it matters 10 days from now, but oh my gosh, 10 months from now. In fact, when Dan and I were writing the book, we had our own mental timeline of when this book needed to be out, and we really kind of hit a wall of not being fully satisfied with the outcome. It felt JV, and and he and I both kind of were like, let's run this through one of our own tools. What a concept, right?
Yes.
And we sat there on a phone call, and I remember this specifically. Like, is it going to matter 10 days from now? Yeah, because I'm going to be disappointed. 10 months from now, I'm going to be kind of disappointed we didn't get it out on the timeline. 10 years from now, looking back, we're going to go, thank God we did it right. Thank God we waited and got some things dialed in and dialed up. It was amazing to see how just applying that tool to our own situation helped us create. I feel like this is a varsity effort. Are there some things we do differently? Sure, but it's something I'm proud to have my name on.
Yes. And
then there's another wrinkle to this same 10-10-10, and that is a value multiplier. And basically applying so let's say it passes the 10-10-10 sniff test. And this is where I had a personal decision kick out on this, that it was, would I make the same decision 10 times, 100 times, or 1,000 times? And I had a decision recently that it passed the 10 times sniff test, but when I said, would I make the same decision 100 times? No. Would I make it 1,000? It was a no way. I didn't have to certainty. And so I literally didn't go the direction I was headed with it.
So with the way this tool works, if you would answer, yes, I would make this decision 10 times, and yes, I would make it 100 times, but I wouldn't necessarily make it 1,000 times. Do you say, if you wouldn't make this 1,000 times, then this is probably not the right decision, or just I might need to weigh this thing a little bit more. I need to pray about this thing a little bit more. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. Maybe there's just a little uncertainty there or unsettledness about the decision, and you need to pursue it in prayer, find out more fact about it, or better, deeper understanding. Seek some counsel from some other people. In my case, when I looked at it through the 1,000 times lens, I was completely unsettled about it, and it helped to kick it out. I can't tell you how much peace came over me at that point.
That's good. Were you using that? I don't know when you learned about that tool, but were you using that in your previous business also?
This falls into the category of, I wish I would have known then what I know now. Oh my gosh. There's so much of that.
we live and we learn, right?
Oh.
Well, I love this. And I'll tell you that when, I don't even remember who reached out to me to talk to me about this, but whoever it was that reached out to me to tell me about this, I was actually really excited to get a copy of this and go through it, because I thought to myself, I almost had like this duh moment, like, why isn't there a book that already does this?
And we hope this, as you know, writing book, you've written a bunch of books. Book writing is not it's not a profit center. It's a passion center.
Yeah.
And we wrote this so that in the hopes that people could leverage this as a reference manual, that it would be something that would have staying power, and it would be a guidebook they might actually go to, not because these two guys wrote it, but because it is a way to make Proverbs, which is a timeless piece of literature, more practical and relevant to today's world.
Yeah, so good. I love it.
We write about it in the introduction, right? Why don't we put King Solomon in the same class as Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos and all these epic, icons of industry today? He should be.
Yeah,
he is. He was.
That's it. I love it. That's good. Where do people go to get more information about this book, and where do people go to get more information about Acumen?
You bet. Well, thank you. On the book is pretty simple. Sharpen is the name of the book, and the website is sharpenbook.com. Pretty clever, aren't we? And then, and then the resource to find more info about Acumen is acumenimpact.com.
Good stuff. Thanks for joining me today, Drew. I appreciate it so much.
Well, flattered to be a guest and very grateful.
Thanks for joining us on the Kingdom Driven Entrepreneur Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard today, we encourage you to subscribe and spread the word. And don't forget, you can gain access to even more resources, plus a thriving community of fire starters by visiting our website at kingdomdrivenentrepreneur.com.